the special, I want to really tell the story why I called her up here, is because in 2019 I was invited to the unveiling of a monument in a memory of a soldier, an Aboriginal soldier, who lost his life in World War I, and his grandson was there to represent the family. And his address there was so emotional that I wanted to bring it to you today. And I invited Barbara, who is both an author, she's an author, and she has written 3 books about William Cooper, our hero, and really what he's done, a lot of you might know already, but she might say a few words about that, correct? Yes, just a few words. And yes, you can. And then she will read from what Mark wrote and spoke to us about his grandfather and about the Israel and Indigenous people connection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dalia, for inviting us. And it's such an honour to be here. And regarding William Cooper, one of the things that was so touched my heart, that was when I wrote that book, the first one, William Cooper, Gentle Warrior, in 2012. For the launch of that book, I wanted to do a reenactment of William Cooper's walk from his home in Footscray with the Australian Aborigines League to the German consulate in Melbourne. And so I contacted the German consul, Michael Pearce, and asked him if he would receive a replica letter from Uncle Bondi, who was the grandson of William Cooper. And I was shocked that he agreed, and I said, I'd like to know where the German consulate was in 1938, and he said, well, you're not going to believe it. It's now a law firm and I work there. So I can organise for you to be received there. And so we had Holocaust survivors, because the Jewish Holocaust Centre got involved, children of survivors, Aboriginal people, Christians, Jewish people walked on that march. And what really happened when we got there is Michael Pearce gave an apology on behalf of the German government, so for what had happened at Kristallnacht. And so there wasn't a dry eye at that particular time. It was very, very moving. And so that was just a quick sharing on William Cooper. And so regarding CMAC, I've been asked to read the statement of Mark Pollard, and that's quite special to me because Norman and I led a team of Australians and New Zealanders, an ANZAC team, to CMAC to pray there in 2010 on the anniversary of the Light Horse Charge, and we were there again. We led an international team of 50 there in 2017, and it was an amazing event with descendants of the Indigenous light horsemen riding on their horses in uniform for a special ceremony. We weren't there when Dalia was there, when the beautiful replica of the Indigenous soldier was unveiled in 2019. So on the 25th of September 2019, clothed in his grandfather's army uniform, Mark Pollard, an Australian Aboriginal, stood proud at the Seamark railway station, addressing dignitaries and visitors who travelled from Australia, including Aboriginal descendants of the Australian 11th Light Horse Regiment troopers, to attend the unveiling of the monument dedicated to the Australian Aboriginal Light Horse. troopers of World War I killed at the Semark railway station on the Battle of the 25th of September 1918. The sculpture, designed by Australian artist Jennifer Marshall, titled "No Greater Love Than This," features Jack Pollard, Mark's grandfather, and his horse. Over 1,500 Aboriginal men enlisted for service in World War I, many serving with great distinction and particularly in the Light Horse regiments. The 20th Reinforcement Contingent for the 11th Light Horse Regiment was nearly all Aboriginal and were known as the Queensland Black Watch. 19 Australian troopers and 60 horses were killed in the fierce hand-to-hand fighting. The Australian troops captured the station and the way to Damascus was opened. Although these men on enlistment had effectively signed a blank cheque, including their own life, on returning home they did not receive the recognition, soldier benefits or pension. Sadly, at that time in our Australian history, these men were not recognised as Australian citizens. They had no voting rights. In the military, however, they were equal and paid the same, suffered the same. There were no racial tensions. They were us, as stated on the monument. William Cooper also lost a son as well in the war, and many of the men, I'm just adding quickly, when they came back from the war, they were given land. The Aboriginal soldiers, their land, not only were they not given land, it was actually taken from them to give to non-Indigenous soldiers. There is no glory to war. It is simply a descent into a seemingly endless insanity that humanity seemed eternally capable of. But in that madness and darkness, there is courage and there is honour. A courage displayed by the men of the 11th Light Horse Regiment as they galloped across open ground and through machine guns and rifle fire to overturn an entrenched enemy who far outnumbered them. Honour in the way they dispersed fair justice and due respect. They fought not for the glory but for peace. Peace for all the world and the people of Israel, said Mark Pollard. We commemorate the sacrifice of Australian troops who fought here 105 years ago today. Australians who planted the roots and set the tone for Australian commitments to this region and the strong and long-standing friendship between Australia and Israel. We pay particular tribute to the contributions of the Australian Aboriginal troopers of the First World War. As we look towards the future, we must remember the sacrifices and bravery of Australian troops during the Sinai-Palestine campaign, World War I, and indeed all wars. They wrote the critical early chapter of Australia's national story and the Australian Israel story. Their sacrifice gave us the opportunity to arise our own stories, said Ambassador Kanan. We cannot stand here and remember the sacrifice of only the Indigenous troopers who fought without also honouring the memory of their non-Indigenous brothers who fought and died beside them, said Mark Pollard. It is perhaps fitting in some way the Aboriginal Australians themselves, part of a displaced people in their own spiritual land, volunteered to travel to a distant country to help in the reunification of another displaced people with their holy land, said Mark Pollard. This memorial will mean many different things to different people. The blood of my people, said Mark Pollard, fell on this soil. So this place will forever be part of the story of Indigenous Australians, and we will forever now be part of the story of Israel. Let this memorial be not a tribute to war, but rather let it be another candle in the darkness to guide mankind into the light of peace in the world. A dream and a hope we must never relinquish for the sake of all the children. And Israel High.